afternoon. Um, yeah, later. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and this is the episode about the full moon in Virgo. Now, as you probably have noticed by the caption, um, so I am also on Twitter, and every once in a while I have what I call talismanic posts. It's when I write a post and I just look at the chart, usually after I wrote the post, and that seems to be an election. So if one of them applies to you, feel free to save this post, to print screen the posts, and work with them energetically. This episode actually begins on Venus Day, Saturn hour, with the ascendant um, in Scorpio and next to my Mars actually, and descendant is ruled by Venus, and Saturn is close to the IC, 28 degrees Aquarius. So this is the time of the recording, and the midheaven is in Virgo. Mercury is ruling Virgo, is in Aquarius, trine in Mars in Gemini, and separating from a square with Uranus and Taurus. So, quite interesting disposition. For me, Virgo is in the seventh house, so issues of relationship, and so I guess Venus Day. Um, Saturn here is interesting, and I'll see how that Saturn may be that realistic appraisal or needed contraction, longevity, teeth health, hair health, nervous system health. And we'll see what will come up. So this is not chart of the full moon, it's just a disposition from which I look at the full moon. Now let us pick, I'll just open another. So full moon in Virgo. And I use the AstroSeek. That is pretty comfortable. Okay, that makes more sense. So this is okay. This is the moon phases, but I'm looking for the lunations. So full and new moons, but we're gonna have to do a March. Okay, March 7th. So full moon chart. That's the full moon. 7th of March. This is in the Middle East. So if you're in Australia, it might be 6th March. If you're in the US, then that might be later that day or even in the 8th March. But I noticed people talking about the 7th March. So adjust this to your location. Full moon in Virgo. 16 degrees Virgo, so it's the middle phase of Virgo, naturally opposing the sun in Pisces. We see here immediately that Uranus is sextiling the sun and trining the moon. So this full moon is going to apply to square Mars in Gemini. That squares also the sun, separating from square with the sun, and to a very lesser extent Mercury if you take a wider orb. Our outer planet context is Neptune is going to be squaring Mars. Mars is applying to square Neptune very tightly on this full moon. So, fated events. Um, and for me, Neptune is on my ascendant, so I guess it's going to be something personal. But for you, Neptune is in Pisces, really tightly squaring Mars for the third and final time before Mars leaves its shade period and Mars leaves Gemini as well. Okay, so you can expect some fated event, okay, or action regarding missing things. Okay, what Neptune can bring missing things, but there can be action taken. And because the moon is applying to square this Mars, so Mars will be active. Okay. Um, well, you'll need to see how that applies to you. Pluto is in the 29th degree of Capricorn. Saturn is in the 29th degree of Aquarius. So we have a very pivotal, not pivotal moment. Okay. Uh, this March is the month where, Saturn will ingress. Okay, this is really 59th minute. Saturn will ingress into Pisces within the current of this full moon, within the context. So you can think of this full moon as the full moon where Saturn ingresses into Pisces easily. I'm going to just for a minute animate the chart for one day, and then we're going to take it back. And you see, Saturn is already in Pisces. Okay? So this full moon is probably the most potent of 2023. And this is with Saturn in the 29th degree. And then while the full moon is happening, while we're letting go of something, Saturn ingresses into Pisces. Now, full moons, as we know, are culmination. So think about the last 6 months. Okay, because 6 months ago, we had a new moon in Virgo. So for March, we have March, then 1 month back would be February, January, December, November, October, and September. Okay, so think about the beginning of September, the new moon in Virgo. What was happening in your life? What were you doing? Was it the type of communication, Mercury? Was it the type of learning something new, new skill, reading something? Maybe you began to read a pivotal book that changes your life, and now you're finishing the book. It can also be that. Writing something. Um, it can be related to herbal medicine, okay, herbs in the nervous system. Maybe you were beginning something, now it's culminating. Um, Now you do need to pay attention because what this moon is bringing into being is Mars, okay? It's trining Uranus. It's separating from a trine to Uranus. That's in the background. And that Uranus now sextiles the Sun and is no longer in a hard aspect with Mercury at the time of this full moon. Okay, currently Mercury is still squaring Uranus from Aquarius. So Mercury, the ruler of the full moon, is in Pisces, the sign of its fall. Okay, it's opposite to the sign where it rules. And Mercury in Pisces sees a reality. It can paint. It can create. It can deliver the space between words with words. Okay, it's not again, fallen can be antidote. Pisces is what cannot be described in words. Mercury's words. So Mercury can bring words into what cannot be defined with words. It can bring, but also it can bring showing, not telling. It can bring the ability to communicate the invisible. Okay, Mercury in Pisces is the potential to communicate the invisible. Think about greatest artists, painters. Okay, this is a Mercury that not only is isolated, Mercury does not make any aspect to any planet. So the ruler of this full moon, and I had the term Neptune is in splendid isolation because right now Neptune is pretty much isolated. But in here, the ruler Mercury here is in isolation, but it can also be splendid isolation. Do you need a splendid isolation at this time? Now think about what does this Mercury rule? It rules Virgo, it rules Gemini. So the ruler of these houses is in isolation. It can be a mercurial figure in your life. And why do I say splendid? Because the difficulty is having Mars applying to square Neptune. The only good aspect Mars is making is separation from a sextile to Venus in Aries. Okay? And to a lesser degree, a separation from a sextile to Chiron in Aries and Jupiter. So, but this is separating aspects. What it does apply to is a square to the sun. It is a square to Neptune, separating from a square to the sun. And squares the moon. So, Mars, Mars and Neptune have a certain play that is not so predictable. Depending on what does it rule in your chart, okay? Whatever Mercury figure in your life, or you, okay? You can have a situation where this mercurial figure or this message or this child or something to do even with agreements, contracts, okay, is coming to your Pisces house. But Mercury does not create any aspects. So it can be split in isolation. However, what is happening, okay, there's a full moon that is making a hard aspect to this Mars. So something in your Virgo house is making a hard aspect to this Mars. And there is and the ruler is in the place where it's not something you might be able to see it or to dream it or to communicate it in a way that is not clear cut, but Mercury here, you can paint something, you can create something. But then Mars with Neptune, okay? Mars is with Neptune. And of course, the moon is ruling Cancer, so you also have to think about Cancer, where Mars is going to enter. Now, what I said about Mars in Gemini with this square to Neptune is, well, first of all, reframing defeat. Like I said, some things um, can seem like you lose something, but the reason that you are not winning this argument or having the frame in your favor is because there's a bigger issue. And like I said, Uranus is going to enter Gemini. Okay. For example, let's say Mercury is your second house and you wanted to buy a gun. Now everybody's, in my country, it's like in the United States, they're threatening to take the guns. And in Israel, they're giving guns to everyone. Um, so let's say you wanted to buy a gun and something fell with that deal. You didn't find a reputable vendor. Something fell. The gun does not work. Okay, the gun does not shoot. Right? Um, but then this incident that you thought, oh my God, how will I protect myself? How will I this? How will I that? You find out that you said, okay, I don't have a gun. I don't know what to do. Then I will just allow things to be and hope for good. Neptune is also manifesting. Okay, I'll dream good dreams. I'll manifest good things, and so on and so forth. And then the next thing you know, you hear that many people that were using guns or invoking the Second Amendment, if you're in the United States, were not backed up, or the gun that you were supposed to buy and you didn't have was not a gun that was meant to shoot. It was a gun that was a spying device. Okay, Neptune is also spying. Okay, so that deal fell. You didn't get the gun. Yeah, but notice the moon is also sextile in Uranus. You thought, oh my God, I cannot defend myself. I cannot this. And then you find out that the gun that you didn't have was a spying device. And when Uranus comes to the second house for you, okay, in Gemini, Uranus is also transparency. Then mass news, okay, mass surveillance has been exposed. And so that defeat that you felt, like, oh my gosh, I cannot protect myself. Like they said they're going to allow me to have a gun and I cannot protect myself. Now, what you didn't have is not a gun, but you actually did not have a spying device attached to your body, because people sleep with the gun, they carry the gun invisibly. Okay, in many places it's considered more ethical to carry it invisibly, okay, than Neptune. Okay, for some people it might mean that you actually acquire an invisible gun. Okay, acquire a gun and wear it invisibly. Because Neptune is also hidden. It's not hidden as in Pluto, but it's more hidden like spying. Okay. And now there's this hard aspects, because again, what Mars is seeking to do with the Gemini place, what Mars is seeking to do is the job of Uranus. Uranus will enter Gemini, I believe 2025, will be the 2025, 2026 and on. And it will create tremendous revolution and transparency, because Uranus, it brings air. It brings into air things. Okay, that's why it can be, that's why it can also be explosive. Because something comes into the air, and when you feel, when you deliver a great message, a great news, a great this, there's this saying, you throw a bomb. Okay, so Uranus is about that. Sometimes it can be literal bombs, but sometimes it can just mean that we bring into air something that creates transparency, and the experience is like, oh, there was a, like we threw a bomb. Um, and so Mars is not necessarily just, a gun or a weapon. It can be. It can also a framing. Okay, perhaps you try to frame yourself in a certain way, and that falls through. You feel defeated. I didn't manage to get my point across. I didn't manage to advocate for myself or to advocate for my argument. Okay, and you feel defeated. But then 2 years from now, Uranus is going to come to your Gemini house, and what you didn't manage to explain here with this isolated Mercury is going to be mass represented for people. Okay, think about, for example, Mars Gemini was also quite discussions and framings around vaccines, and this is a great concrete example because the people who said, okay, I feel side effects, okay, affect my menstrual system, affect my nervous system, whatnot, and they were ignored, and they were being played down. A couple of months later, or a year later, um, they're winning class lawsuits. Okay, so think about this Mars and Gemini in the sense of Mars is a personal planet, Uranus is a transpersonal. Okay, Neptune is a transpersonal. What is very likely to happen is that your framing is not getting to the core of the issue, because Uranus is a revolution from the core of something. The core structure of something is about to be transformed, liberated. Okay? So you're not getting to the bottom of this. And so you feel like you lost something. You lost the argument. Okay? If it's a court case, you may have lost the court case. And you think, oh my God, what will I do? What will I do? But perhaps not. You lost the court case. When Uranus comes in, you're going to be a part of a class lawsuit. Um, Another thing, let's say Mars is in your seventh house. And so you're trying to get this on, you get it on with, someone or something, someone, yeah. And Mars, notice how when I talk about this energy and I try to say the seventh house, then I said something that is like, when I went or something is like odazo, not something as a thing, right? But the Mars Neptune can create together a combination where it's like you're trying to get it on with a thing. Okay? This is the type of energy. And there can be faults in communication or the initiation or the boundaries or, something playing on. And you see, this relationships does not evolve. It doesn't go anywhere. And you think, oh my God, we were so good together. Why did this happen? Why did we not get together? Then Uranus comes into the Gemini house, and let's say into your seventh, and you meet the love of your life. Then you're like, oh, now the story is like now you meet the person who makes you understand why everybody else was not like was will make you be in the position where like you're forgiven of everybody who didn't want you or wasn't with you or whatnot, because now you met this person. Okay, so we need to remember that what the full moon, and this is a good important point, the full moon is separating from a trine to Uranus. Okay, so It's bringing in a discord in the Mars issue. There can be an argument, there can be a sense of defeat. Now, again, you're somebody's Martian figure in their Mercury house, and somebody is that for your chart. Okay, there are all kinds of ways to read a chart. So, um, okay, you can understand something, but the Uranus trying to the moon is signaling to us that whatever happens with this thingy here, okay, and again, think about the previous squares of Mars, okay, the direct, the retrograde, and the direct, okay. I'm expecting a call from Maya, whom I worked with on right on the squares. We're trying to get a campaign together. So like I know stuff, like I'm expecting a phone call from someone, and that will probably have like, hey, trying to do something. It's like, oh, that didn't fall through, and whatnot. But then Uranus is going to come in 2025 to it. So I already have it prepared for what to say. Um, and you really need to understand, because the moon, this trine to Uranus, is signaling to you that something is falling through now so that Uranus can do its thing. If you are being defeated now, Uranus is going to liberate. Either it's going to be that you thought you were right, and then Uranus comes in and you begin to know better. Um, or alternatively, um, you were uh, trying to advocate for yourself, and the points, the arguments that you used are not getting to the bottom of things, or they're not from the core. Okay, because this is Mars here, in a square with Neptune. Okay, there's something foggy around your arguments, something foggy around acting on your clarity of mind. Then Uranus comes and completely liberates you. Okay? For example, for me, it is the fourth house. So it's also my residence. Um, and then, for example, in this, there's the thought, should I apply for this assistance? Should I apply for that? Or should I do this? Or should I do that? And then Mars can come and say, maybe I decide to say, I'm going to take responsibility of financial life. I'm going to come down from the tree that I climbed, and I will ask for assistance from the government. And the government say, no, we don't help you. Okay? Or whatnot. Or we don't pay back that year that you didn't ask for assistance, or whatnot. And I feel defeated, and I feel angry, and I feel betrayed, and I feel deserted, and I feel left out in the cold from whatnot. And then Uranus comes into play 2025, 2026, and I become, an asset owner. Okay, that's the type of play. But there's something that you need to liberate in this house. And there are going to be figures in your life that the Mercurial, look to the Mercurial figures in your life. Look to the lawyers around you, the traders around you. Okay, law, trade, children around you. Okay, languages, people who teach language, or different languages, even Archangel Haniel, just deal with languages, astrology, even to some extent astrologers around you. Look around and see, okay? And see, there's something that Mars is trying to do here, but this is squaring Neptune. Um, and that Mars is sextiling, separating from a sextile from 1 to 3, Jupiter, Chiron, Venus, which are in the sign that Mars rules, Aries. All of that, Okay, I'm recalling the context of anaretic Saturn and anaretic Pluto. Okay, 29 degrees Saturn and Pluto. Pluto in Capricorn, Saturn in Aquarius. Now let's do one more day. Saturn is still here in Saturn is already ingressing. Pluto will take a bit more. But then one more day, the moon is already applying to trine Pluto. Decreasing moon. Full moon is letting go. And Mars Neptune square is about letting go. Mars is in the final phase of Gemini, so it's already, depending on the system, it can already be a moon ruled, Cancer ruled phase. Mars is about to enter the sign of the moon, and the moon is hard aspecting Mars, so we're letting go of patterns. Now, one good thing to do is to ask, to manifest, to set intention. The outer planets are so responsive, all the planets, but the outer planets are so responsive to intention. Okay, because with the outer planets, sometimes all you can do is to set an intention, to tend to things. And then things evolve. Okay, with Mars, you can make an action, a concrete action. With Mercury, you can sign a contract. With Venus, you can speak, sing, create. Okay, with the outer planets, sometimes you can create, but you need to set an intention. And do you receive help? So, all in all, looking at this chart, this is the time. First of all, what you begin is getting a culmination. The culmination, and I think about this as a cycle. Think about the cycle of emptying yourself and being full again. Okay, this is the cycle of the moon, or cyclic system, endocrine system even. The moon here is you became full with something that you're highly likely to abort. Okay? You became full with something you're highly likely to abort from your life. Or is highly likely to be aborted. Okay? You started something 6 months ago that right now came to a full circle, has served its goal. And you need to understand, for some people, in like some difficult cases, that can be a baby or something like that. What you need to understand, and I'm not in any way in position to like say anything, from what is, if possible, good to remember is, if that is the case, is that this cycle has served its goal. And with the grief of letting go or losing or aborting, there is also an understanding that, Uranus is going to come to this Gemini house and is going to liberate you from the patterns that Mars alone could not do. Okay? So this could be something even financial, because Mercury is children, but it's also trade. Okay? Perhaps you were, in the, like, it's something like, I cannot even say worst cases, because it was like, but in difficult cases, you could say, okay, we were going to have this baby, now we don't have this baby. But it may be that this baby was saved from being trafficked, from being traded. And so in 2 years, some things would be exposed about children and about the nervous system, healing the nervous system, all these things. And now Uranus is going to liberate this block from you and the children that you will bring. And it can be the same spirit, okay? The same spirit can bring this cycle, decide to leave the body, and then come back, okay? Even the same spirit can come back when it is time. So you need to remember that. And then it will leave. Okay, so think about this. And not only if this is the case for you, if this is the spirit of your baby, then also you need to understand that this spirit just going through this cycle of almost coming into life, allowing things to be, and then in 2 years, fully coming into life. Perhaps with assistance of technology, but this could be also assisted with technology in this case because it's Mercury, fully coming into life. And so this soul has the memory ingrained in it that in time, everything happens as it should be. In time, everything happens as it should be. So, um, that this is a very massive example, but this is also an example for some creative project that you did. And this project can have something to do with words, writing, vlogs about medicine, okay? Medicine that is of the herbal. Okay, maybe you try to start something with herbal medicine and you need to abort this project. And 2 years from now, when Uranus is going to enter Gemini, the time, the zeitgeist will be ready for you to usher in. And maybe you thought, oh, I'm just going to write a blog about lavender. Okay? Then 2 years, social revolutions everywhere, communication revolutions, researches on the nervous system. Lavender becomes a key herb, and your small vlog is a frontier science article about that lavender and what you discovered that lavender can do in your own practice. Mars alone is not it's a personal planet. It can write a vlog. Uranus can bring in you can be a part of the frontier that brings in something revolutionary to this world. And now you're just, oh, lavender, nervous system, connects you to this or to that. Okay, just lavender is just a plant that works with Mercury. So that's why I pointed it out. So within the supposed loss, defeat, aborting, there is the seed, already the seed of success. And this is what you need to understand. Within the loss, there's the seed of the win in this one. So, what you're letting go of right now is all the framings, the words, the weapons that didn't serve humanity. And we can also do humanitarian work because Neptune is an outer planet. And look at Saturn and look at Pluto. Okay? Pluto and Neptune are still sextiling. They're still in orb. You don't see it here, but it's still in orb. This is a great full moon to manifest, okay, denucleifying the planet. It's a great full moon to set intention for a humanitarian crisis to be resolved in ways that are actually tending to marginalized societies. Okay, Mars Gemini square Neptune. Okay, marginalized society. Neptune margins a Mars, a combat needing to individuate Gemini society. Okay, so marginalized society. Battles, the combats of marginalized society, they might not get to the core of the point, but when Uranus sets in, Uranus is, think about genders. So Uranus is what we consider the gender non-conforming, right? But on a mass scale, communications. Maybe you want to protect your privacy, but we're heading with the Pluto in Aquarius. We're heading to open source systems. What are you trying to do? Pluto in Capricorn, but Pluto's in Aquarius. Doesn't work. So Saturn and Pluto are not making any aspects, but also Mercury. Okay, what tells me here there is a connection. There is a connection between Mercury and the outer planets. It's just not a connection that we are able to observe. We cannot ignore the context. Okay? And so things are happening here with connections that, you know, are not easily discerned. Neptune here is also sextiling the North Node. Neptune. Mercury. Again, Mercury in Neptune, Jupiter Neptune sign, right, is sextiling the North Node. Try to describe Mercury when Mercury is in Pisces and you're tuning into that, to that placement. So Mercury does make a certain aspect, okay, the sextile and trining the nodes. But look, even in on this map, even though it's just a 1 degree orb, it's a very tight orb, it's not visible here. Okay, and this is not because the site is not correct. The site is very highly correct. Okay, it's astrosec.com. But just look at how do these things combine. The node is activated by eclipses. The next one is in 30 April. So we're in the shade of an eclipse already. It's not the shade of an eclipse for a native. Okay, it's not if you're not born under an eclipse, if you're born in March 7th. But it is the shade of an eclipse in the sense that we're already, even right now in February, we're already beginning to see what the eclipse will be about. And so that Mars is sextiling everything here, separating from a sextile with everything here in Aries. And the nodes do not get Mercury out of the isolation alone, okay? Because there's no eclipse here. There is a moon, a full moon. There is a lunation that is important, but it's not an eclipse. And the eclipses are the triggers for the nodes. Okay, we tend to the nodes as eclipse points. And so, yes, there is this activation of an eclipse axis. Is it good enough to be considered an aspect for Mercury? Yes, no. But even this splendid isolation or isolation of Mercury, why do I say splendid isolation? Okay, it's also separating from a conjunction with Fomalhaut. And Fomalhaut in Pisces is a fixed star that tends to wisdom beyond that which psychic wisdom, basically psychic wisdom, also the ability to deliver psychic messages. Now Mercury here is separating from this conjunction. Can we have a fixed star? Do I have a fixed star here? Well, let's look at the minor aspects, because here they're going to play significant roles if they exist. um yeah, we'll have, and we have this aspects with Neptune and Mercury to the moon. Let's look at the aspect itself, because I don't know the name of this aspect. Doesn't tell me. Okay. So that would be a 160, no, 170 and 190 degrees aspect. Or here it would be 100. Yeah, it's difficult. Trying to do computation with Mercury in Pisces, I really am overextending myself. Um, Having a natural Neptune trine Mercury. So, uh, uh, yeah. Interestingly enough, Lilith here is in 6 degrees Leo. Here it is 29th minute on the exact lunation, but because it's the minute and the lunation, I don't know. Um, about to go into 7 degrees, which will mean that she's in conjuncting Mercury. But yeah, no, she's not about to go into 7 degrees. You see these numbers things with Neptune, Mercury. Um, so the moon here is hard aspecting Venus, um, applying to in conjunct Venus. Now, with this applying to in conjunct Venus, again, the topics of women's rights, um, abortion rights, rules around children, messages around children, acting in favor of children, all this amnesty stuff. There's something there that doesn't get what we desire. Okay, there's the right, we desire the right thing, we don't get it just yet. Uranus is going to do it on a mass scale, on a global scale. Okay, the change is on a global scale. Perhaps you're trying, because Gemini is local. Uranus and out any other planet is global. Okay. Um, Mars is trying to do social rebellions on a local. You have it in Iran, we have it in Israel for different reasons. We have it on and off in the United States for quite a while. But of course, United States is classic. It's going to enter the house where it usually creates as civil war. But it doesn't have to be civil war for all countries. For the United States, it probably will be. Um, And then there's something around a good desire. So Mars here is probably right, but either Mars is trying to act on a local scale, and or Mars is not observant of the non-dual experience. Okay? Or alternatively, Mars is trying to act in favor of accommodating for non dual experiences, which I also see with the spread of open dialogue and so on and so forth. Um, so, Mars Venus are in good relations, but it's no longer the personal planets now. It's no longer the play of the personal planets now. Aries cannot have an asteroid. Not read here. Aries is already close, she's Venus is very close to conjunct Aries in this one. Aries with the E. So again, Aries does give Venus a lift, but conjunction is a hard aspect. Venus is about diplomacy, bringing things together. Aries is severing ties with the unjust. So Aries is the woman who can, like Xena the warrior. Okay, she severs ties with the unjust. Venus wants to have a diplomacy, to have a discussion. Okay, and so Venus and Mars are in good relations. Mars, that means Mars and Aries are in good relations. Okay, it does tell me that um, Aries, working with Aries can be very useful. Um, there can also be something around vehicles, around transportation. Um, so something happening in your Mercury houses, but Venus saves the day, or you're actually there with Venus. Okay. And then yeah. So Venus is with Aries. Venus is trying to bring diplomacy to Aries. And Aries is, and then there is a good convention between Venus, Aries, and Mars. So this is a reason for me to say I like this chart. I really, really do. Maybe if I do this chart, but without the animation. Not the bird chart. It's okay. Yeah. Oh, now I have it. Now let's see. Because I knew I would have more things here. No, I have the asteroids. I also want the fixed stars. Fixed stars first. Yeah. Okay. So there's this Almach Uranus. I don't know what is Almach or what is it doing. And then I want also, oh, I can't have them both. Okay. The moon is on Prius Acel, which I don't know what it means. So, oh, this is Lilith. The moon, yeah. Do we have any major fixed stars there? There's this Almach with Uranus. If you know to tell me something about that, that would be great. And now let's do the asteroids. So, yeah. And I want degrees. It looks messy, but I'll guide you through. The moon. Sadhana is still in 28 degrees. Still very much trining Pluto. Vesta with Jupiter. Here being sextiled by Mars. Aries is in 24 degrees Aries. Okay, so Venus is applying, and that means she's also sextiling Mars. So it's not a tight conjunction, but it's already a conjunction. Venus can already see, she can already sense Aries. Okay, and think about the female UN representative that meets a radical feminist activist, and they converse on how to frame something. Okay, so the women activist might go to some more, let's just frame it in this way, and Aries says, that's not gonna do the job. Um, or they find something that they can agree about. Juno is also this Juno Aries, okay? Juno Aries is something that I like. We might have rebellious couples, okay? Couples that rebel the structure or rebel what people consider couples that have a different sense of self. This happens on my Mercury, which is the ruler of the seventh and fourth, so who knows? But then Mars, ruler of the entire complex, okay, the entire stellium of Aries, Juno, Venus, Chiron, Jupiter, Vesta, is in Gemini, square Neptune. Okay, something is coming here to a certain fruition, and Uranus will do its job. Don't forget that Sedna is about to move into Gemini. So Sedna, other than, betrayal stuff and all that, underworld, stories being sold by her father and so on, Sedna is also meridian-based healing. It's the understanding of energy points, energy. Okay? Sedna, we cannot say Sedna without saying energy, because it's what is meridians. It's energy points in the body that we use to make sure that the flow of the chi is, the life force is fluent. But sadhana is not about your physical body, just your physical body. It's how your body relates to the entire cosmos. And you can take a look at my study with me, sadhana. And there is, I show you where the book that I'm reading, the transcription of, that discusses the meridian aspect of sadhana. I'm very grateful to this book because all I knew about sadhana before that was betrayal by someone, by the father or something like that. And I'm like, okay, there's more to sadhana than that, than the Inuit myth. Sadhana is about working with the meridians of the entire cosmos. And so my prediction is that sadhana can yield scientific discoveries as well as intervention in the entire cosmos, which will be necessary for transgalactic transportation and transgalactic society. And Uranus is going to enter Gemini. Well, Sedna will already be in Gemini. So how can Mars do anything right now when we don't even have Sedna in Gemini? We don't even get the feel of what it's like to get to know our nervous systems, our societies, our communications, our vehicles on a meridian level. We might begin to learn something about it. Sedna's ingress is going to bring in the energy. And Sedna is still square in Saturn. Okay, applying to square Saturn. Saturn separating from the square to Sedna. That's more correct to say. So and Hygeia is still separating from this conjunction to Pluto. So we're still working on transforming, rejuvenating our concepts of hygiene. And this is not just, when I talked about Hygeia, we had a new moon or a full moon that was conjuncting Hygeia. Look to my videos about that. And when I talked about the concept of hygiene, hygiene on a political level, Pluto's politics, what we think of cleanliness, and so on and so forth. So Hygeia is already in Aquarius during this time, squaring the nodes. No, Hygeia is not squaring the nodes. This is applying to square the nodes. Hygeia is squaring, uh, well, yeah, she is squaring, still squaring Aries, Juno, to a lesser degree Venus, and to a lesser degree the entire stellium in Aries. Humea, here with the IC, but Humea is trining Saturn. So I don't know to say a lot about Humea. I need to study it myself, and I will do a study with Humea. Ceres trining Pluto. Okay, separating from trine to Pluto. She's very interesting here because Ceres, we know, is also the agriculture, the mother, and the mothers. Think about Ceres and Persephone, okay, Demeter and Persephone, where Persephone was kidnapped by Hades and violated, and became the queen of the ruler of the underworld with Hades, and was and Ceres, her mother said, the earth will only be fertile when I get my daughter, and she got her daughter for 6 months. Then the land is fertile, and then in the winter, Persephone goes into the underworld. So think about these myths, both how we conceive them, because this trine with Pluto, we might have a renewed view of that myth. Sedna trining Pluto adds a dimension of understanding the energy work of Sedna, not just the myth of betrayal. So Sedna doesn't have to be betrayal if we work with it magically. Think about Algol. Algol is protecting from all the signification of Algol in spirit and in matter when you work with it in a magical way. So, Sedna, right? And I definitely am waiting for Sedna to leave the square with Saturn so that I can do work with her. She will already be in Gemini, but I'm already learning. Ceres is the mother. So think about mother's children. That Mercury that was conjuncting Pluto is now in Pisces. And Ceres is having a conversation with this anoretic Pluto to bring back the children and to make the land fertile again. And the trine to Sedna, understanding how the meridians of missing children or children that are violated or traded correspond with the earth, so agricultural weather, and to in lesser degree the galaxy, or maybe not to a lesser degree the galaxy, comets, discoveries of planets for the lack of our ability to have society, social expansion in the galaxies. How are these meridians are in correlation with each other? Those children that might feel unseen, unheard, untended to, they might be more tended to than they can even believe that they are. And humanitarian work, if you do humanitarian work on this day, letting go of energy blockages, letting go of energy patterns in the cosmos, in the galaxy, in the earth, surrounding children, surrounding trade, surrounding agreements, surrounding juristics, surrounding news, media coverage, small technologies, communication, transportation, that no longer serve, allowing us to usher Sedna into Gemini house with way greater ease. Because she meets us when we understand, we meet Sedna halfway, that she comes to release things so that the flow is more even, the flow is more fluent. And when we understand what she's coming to do, when we understand Sedna, then we can allow her to do her job, and we can interpret things right on a more personal level. Okay, so Demeter series, okay, is trying this Pluto. And hygiene here, we're going to have new or regenerated concept of what cleanliness means. Where's clean energy? Boom. Think about greenwashing, okay? You are the carbon that they wish to, blah, blah, blah. I was watching Mark Boyerski, and he was talking about being in Chesky, mining with the miners of Moldavite, Czech Republic. And he said that the government pays landowners to not grow something, and if the government finds out, then it's problems. Okay, like they say in Netherlands, maakt problemen. In Netherlands as well. Okay, the government paid farmers to not grow cattle. The excuse was environmental, but that would mean that the country does not grow its own agriculture. Think about Dutch cheese. Think about a meat of cows that work in nature rather than, farm animals. Um, think about all these things. So you can say, okay, some of it is in favor of the planet, in favor of this. Okay, but who is going to feed the citizens and how? So there are many, it's intricate. Um, Now they're still in Taurus. So we talk about land, we talk about agriculture from that perspective. Ceres is in an air sign. Here it's in Venus sign of the air. Okay, it's in Libra. So think juristics, laws, aesthetics, how we use perhaps agriculture, or maybe what is the role of agriculture in our makeup. Okay. And so cleanliness is going to fundamentally transform. What we consider hygiene is going to transform. Ethnic cleansing is not hygiene. Actually, biodiversity is better both for agriculture, for animals, and for people. Diversity and genetic diversity, wanted to say divergence, genetic diversity actually reduces the risk of the type of genetic mutations that make it difficult for the native to live with them. Okay, because we are going to opt for something, and if we don't have diversity in our genes, then we're going to create diversity. But then what we have available is going to be, we know this problem. So we understand a racist view or racial view of hygiene that wants purity of the race, both in animals, in agriculture, and in people, is actually not healthy for the human being. But biodiversity is. If you want your child to be healthy, you want them to walk barefoot. Oh, Finland! I was talking about Finland. They were bringing nature into the kindergartens because they found out that when the children play in the garden and are exposed to the herbs, the microorganisms, everything, the pathogens even, they become more healthy, less allergies. Their immune system is better. Okay, and so biodiversity is something to opt for. Also on the land, in agriculture, permaculture. Okay? Versus, we think about a whole field of cucumbers versus permaculture. We have healthier vegetables, healthier fruits, healthier nuts and seeds, healthier cattle, and you eat that, you become healthy. Okay, you might not eliminate the cycles of nature, of death and rebirth, but you can definitely become healthier by allowing biodiversity in. So there's a tension or a creative tension between the need to sever ties, to separate, to create boundaries, okay, Pluto Saturn, and the need in Hygeia in Aquarius to counter, to rebel these boundaries, to have some dirt on the land, on your feet, to have some dirt underneath your nails, that you can be proud of working the land, and your immune system becomes healthy. But we don't want to overdo that, because then we get to the Middle Ages, where people were just too dirty and they died, where the doctors who would tend to the corpses would also tend to the women who bring labor. And then what happened? The mother dies, sometimes the mother and the child dies, and the minute they just kept hygiene, they just sanitized their hands after treating the bodies, before treating the pregnant women, this saved lives. Yeah, so we don't want to throw the baby with the cradle, but we also want to introduce biodiversity and to introduce a bit dirt. That which we deem as dirt, we want to introduce a bit dirt, so that we are developing healthy immune systems and richer lives, right? And so we have here another tending to this theme of Sedna, Pluto, Hygeia series, Mercury, because Mercury also rules children. Okay, messages. So Mars in Gemini squaring the Moon and squaring Neptune can also mean a failed attack. Something tries to attack and it fails, it falls through. Neptune doesn't work. It doesn't necessarily have to mean something negative. Okay, somebody tried to frame you wrong, doesn't work. Uranus comes in to help. What does Uranus connect with? Pallas. Ooh, Pallas Athena. Okay, so Pallas Athena, if Aries is Xena the warrior, Pallas Athena is also one of the asteroids that were associated with the Xena the warrior archetype. Okay, she is the woman who defends women rights, and here she is also sextiling the moon, and so Pallas here is in Cancer, so she can defend the emotional aspect of caregiving, or the emotions. Think about women who went through, or even men, okay, who went through emotional abuse, psychological abuse. Then Pallas can stand up for these emotions. Your emotional experience is valid. Okay? Radical. This trine, this sextile and trine with Uranus, Moon, and Pallas. Radical emotional acceptance. Radical acceptance of your emotional nature. It's okay to feel the way you feel about it. And the Moon in a Mercury sign, Virgo. This is something cognitive, understanding that your emotions are absolutely not wrong. Your emotional reactions are not overreacting. You're not overreacting. Okay, this is very much the spirit of this. And with Uranus, you will be reacting. You will be rebelling. Your voice is valid. Um, Sedna is hard. Pallas is hard aspecting Jupiter and Chiron here. trining the sun, and she's trining Mercury. So this I like to see. Mercury applies to trine Pallas, and that is also sextiling this pole, which I don't know what it says, so you would need to let me know. Eris here trining Neptune and trining the moon. So the moon is also trining Eros. Yes, something in our sensual nature, our erotic nature is, let's see, what is it, hard aspect in here? Eros. Oh, this is psychedelic. Eros is hard aspect in Venus. Um, but sextiling the sun and trining the moon. Okay, there's something, a combination also around our erotic nature here in Capricorn. Maybe we are erotically attracted to hard work or dedication, or actually letting go, so by having a sabbatical, agriculture. I had the fantasy to grow saffron. I have a fantasy to grow saffron. Maybe this thing has to do with that. I don't know. Yeah. So I definitely would want to learn about saffrons. It's grown by Iran, and what is the history of saffron, and so on and so forth. Um, all in all, I really like the fact that Mercury does make some aspects. I really like the trine between Mercury and Pallas, but notice that this trine is in water signs, and Mercury needs cognition. Okay, it's very much to communicating the message that you're not overreacting. Yeah, the way you verbalize yourself is not bad. Okay, radical acceptance of the way you express yourself. Having a hard time to find the words is a sane reaction in your situation. All those understanding, those combinations of understanding. And Mars attempts at something, but it doesn't fall through. Okay. Another form of Mars Neptune, like you said, Mars Neptune can be ideation of weapons, um, ideation of Martian related things, to a lesser degree, ideation of man, uh, phallic addiction or obsession. Um, Disillusionment can also be, but yeah, it doesn't have to be. Um, Mars is severing ties with something, Neptune is dissolving boundaries, Mars is setting boundaries, Neptune is dissolving boundaries. Um, so, with Neptune, well, you also need to understand what side of the Neptune you are. Okay, so maybe you are the Neptune in somebody's life. You're your person. If you have a personal planet there or an ascendant there, like me, then you represent that Neptune energy. Um, so all in all, this full moon is quite intricate. Um, Also, it is the beginning of something more than it is the end of something. Why? Because Uranus is about to go Gemini. Not again, it is not before a year. Um, but think about it now. What we are letting go of now will culminate the culmination of the letting go, the emptying of what no longer serves, will gradually increase or gradually come into a full effect. Think about nutrition, okay? Maybe you decide to cut off sugar and you have a bit addiction to that and so on, so you slowly decrease that undesired sugar and you replace it maybe with fruits, maybe you try to replace it with nuts, maybe with oils, maybe with certain types of meat, until you find the right nutrition for you that gives you your sugars in a healthy way. Okay, so that will take 6 months. That can take 6 months. Yes, it also takes 6 months forward. We're not just culminating 6 months, we're also letting go of something. Maybe we were working on our hygiene because also because of Virgo. Virgo is also cleaning something, cleansing, letting go of certain people, enemies in our lives, messages, thoughts, words, patterns of expression. Well, perhaps we started to clean something in our Virgo house or our hands or something like that, and just fingers, and then we need to we what we did up until now, it was okay, but now it's time to let go of that and make space for something new. Now it's time to work with nutrition, or but the full moon signifies that you are giving something up, some habit that have served you up until now, that you may have began in September earlier this year. You're letting go. It served you up until now. Now you're letting go. You need to do things differently from now on. Okay, and Hygeia plays a role here. The way you saw hygiene up until now, perhaps you were trying to, when Hygeia was in Capricorn, you were trying to eliminate, and sanitize. Now you've reached your goal, or you've reached certain part of the goal, and now you also need to introduce pathogens, to introduce some dirt. Um, so Aegea is squaring Juno. Oh well, perhaps you met someone and you want to have you want to rebel together, and you need to be with your bare feet on the ground, and the fingers are going to get pathogens of dirt and so on and so forth. It's not realistic to clean yourself in the same way you cleanse yourself. So you you come to understand what you did up until now. You need to let go because there's some greater goal at hand, and it also increases your um, um, resilience to pathogens. Yeah, something like that. The way you did something with hygiene, with messages, with words, with communication, with trade, with agriculture, even. Um, so this the introduction of something new. I think also about Ceres' role here. Ceres, yeah. So think about children being taken from their parents or the mothers because they were not clean, and then the realization that we actually need to help the mother and not take the child, or help the father. Okay, maybe fathers can even more so be prone to that because of stigma. And then to understand that no, it's not that the parent is being neglecting, they just try to do so many things together. And but then perhaps their child becomes even healthier because they are exposed to pathogens that other children are not exposed to, so the child does not have allergies, and so on and so forth. Um, Sun here, trine in Pallas. Um, there are, again, Venus is applying to Aries. Uranus will go and it will slowly cross Sedna and go into Gemini. Or it goes into Gemini. Yeah, it goes into Gemini when Sedna is pretty much in the beginning of, of Gemini. Um, the social causes are going to go through an update. What we rebel, how we rebel, our call to action. Because Mars is a lot about call to action in Gemini, social call to action. Is going to get a serious major update. Hey, even if let's say for example during COVID times, COVID was very good for people who needed to isolate, for introverts, right? For children, to a certain degree, up until the vaccines, it was good because you had them. They had more time with the family. Also, they were sitting in groups of five, four, like in Finland, like in Denmark, with one teacher. Okay, so they were beginning to study in groups, not study every day, more like Finland, more like Nordic education systems, where the teachers, elementary school teachers, are very dignified, which is interesting also astrologically. I don't know how to delineate that, but I will look at that. Um, and so children got more personal attention up until the vaccines. Okay, I'm not saying this necessarily vaccines good or bad, but definitely the vaccines that exist in the market are not something that I would, you know, that's not the vaccine. Like that's not the vaccine that I would want children to have. But we would also not want them to have COVID. You know, it's not an easy situation. Um, so children got to play outside more. If you had a yard, all those things that happened, around COVID. On the other hand, domestic violence also increased, right? Because people had to be in lockdown. So social distancing was good for some. You had shelters for people who are homeless by the Ministry of Health. And so when there were lockdowns, people homeless had shelters. When there were no lockdowns, no shelters unless you're freezing outside and then depending on the country. And so some countries no shelters anyway, like Israel, huh? But they say shelters nothing. But but then um, some people were angry at the lockdown, and some other people said, okay, if there is lockdown, then I can wear a mask, but at least I have a place to sleep, and I can be more resilient from certain other problems. Um, so that was Sedna with on COVID and so on and so forth. Um, Social distancing and so on and so forth. But and then happened the issues with the vaccines. And then with the vaccines, we were exposed to masses of people having heart conditions in situations that are unpredictable for a person to have a heart condition. Now, this is something that's very easy to masquerade because heart condition is the number one or the number two or number one cause for death. So it's very easy to say, well, you don't know why. Okay, but then people also began to look at beta blockers because more people were given beta blockers, more people dealt with health crisis. So more people are given beta blockers, which cause death without the body having signals for it. So they can be given for heart conditions, they can be given for dealing with mental crisis. And so mass awareness for um, the pros and cons of the way we are being treated when we go, when we pay very expensive insurance, regardless of the country we're at. Even when you try to bring, in Israel, there are people who are Zionists, so they try to bring Jews from abroad, like the United States. The most people that they manage to bring to do Aliyah, to come to Israel, they are doctors, okay, not psychologists, not pharmacologists, doctors, because Israel pays doctors the best in the country. And so, if you want to bring in people from America to Israel, and what we paid in shekels, you're paid in dollars, so it's 3.5 times more. And now the living expenses are terrible. But if you try to bring an American Jew into Israel, you have a chance if they're a doctor. You have zero chances if they're a psychologist. You have zero chances if they're a pharmacologist. Other professions they didn't even mention. So you know I can't tell what I don't know. um, and that creates a situation where uh, the most like the people we invest in the most do not give us the treatment that we expect when we invest and allocate energy, wealth, whatever, whoever we are. Okay? If I'm recovering, if I have a disability of 100% in my ability to work, I still, even I get something from the welfare, I still pay health insurance. And it's not, I don't have an option even. Okay, I have to pay it from what I get from the welfare. Okay, so it's not even private insurance. And still you pay for that. So there's no opting for something else. And the people we invest in the most, who get the best jobs, who get the best salaries, who would come from the United States to Israel, they are the people who at the end of the day, and Israel was one of the first to be fully vaccinated country. Um, they are the people who would give us gaslighting, who would give us ignorance to women and their what they testify, who would give us ignorance to the type of care we need, who would give us ignorance to all kinds of myriads of symptoms. It's those people. It's not the people you can say they don't get paid well, they work too hard, they're not being appreciated. No, they get paid the best of the creme de la 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 creme of, I don't know what type, like what color you call this job, public service, health service, best paid people are the people who betrayed us when we had a problem. You were the enemy of the state and the enemy of public health if you had bad symptoms from wearing a mask or from vaccinating yourself. Okay? And so, um, as we are tending to this mass understanding that even in the best of cases, the best of our medical staff are grossly either uninformed, unable to speak, oppressed, or silenced. In the best of 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 cases, ignorant. Okay? Thank you, Venus in Aries, for helping me to deliver that message without, in the most elegant and diplomatic way that message can be delivered. And again, these are not stupid people. And so, on a mass level, we became informed that our best health insurances. Okay, basically the bowly colies, a lot of them is health insurance. Okay, if an insurance company buys health insurance to their employees, if a bank buys health insurance and life insurance to their employees, this is health insurance. Okay, our health insurance, our 401ks, our pensions are the most stable core of the economy. If you're not an investor, your 401k, okay, it's bowly colies as well. If like I don't know what they do there, but to think about the bonds that are the most stable to invest in. If you're the most solid investor and you have to do something with your money so not to lose the value, you're gonna look for bolicolies, something that trades bolicolies. Okay, that's the cream de la cream. Okay, Pfizer stock, Moderna stock. I don't remember the third company stock during COVID. I think plummeted is it's the upwards, right? It's going up. Okay, it went up by so many percents. So we come into the full understanding that the best of our economy, when we make good economic decisions, solid economic investments, we're basically putting a lot of power in the hands of certain people that in the best of 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 cases, we're ignorant of the true nature of what assists us to stay healthy and develop a healthy nervous system, a healthy immune system. Okay? And we understand that these people are not stupid. Some of them are oppressed, some of them are silenced, some of them um, genuinely grew up on certain epistemic standards of empiricism that are highly questionable. But like I said, even in the best of the best of the best of the best of cases, they're just ignorant of the actual needs of the patient, i.e., we, the people. So, um, so again, this is the work of an outer planet. Yeah. So Sedna definitely was on and off and still is also sextile in Neptune. You need to understand that this is the position Uranus is about to go into and create this exact aspect with Pluto in Aquarius. Okay, so through an experience of tremendous betrayal, I mean, left out in the cold, we discovered the under the soft underbelly of our regimes, of our healthcare Neptune systems. Neptune is both everything to do with drugs, pharmacology. Said pharmaculture instead of just pharmacology. We discovered the soft underbelly of what happens when that thing goes wrong. What happens when the company that has lost the most class lawsuits in history of pharmacology is the one who you have to rely on to save the day during a global pandemic? Okay? In the best of 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 cases, that's worrisome. The fact that they still let me air something on YouTube is impressive. This is some positive point for thought. Um, we discovered what happens when our regime, like in Australia, uses emergency laws to invade into people's houses in order to vaccinate them, uses mass surveillance after people to check if they're in the house, out of the house. Okay, we discovered What happens when the power we give to our global governments over the the power of the legitimacy of the monopole over violence? I believe that was Weber. What happens when that monopoly over violence is being abused? Okay, now is the time for the legitimacy for the monopoly over the violence to lose what what Chinese philosophy calls the mandate of the heaven. Again, Chinese medicine, meridian-based medicine, okay, treats the rulership as having a mandate of the heaven. Heaven is also our planets. It's also whatever is above. Okay, it's also air element. This is the time where, yes, there was experience of tremendous betrayal from structures and systems, from drugs, okay, and the hopes. There was a great, like, let's just be naive for a second. There was a great hope that we find this pill or this shot or this whatnot that will save the day. This is what drugs are supposed to do. And when Neptune is about to leave its home sign, we are getting a reality check as to what a pill can do and what a pill cannot do. It doesn't mean that vaccines are bad or wrong. It doesn't mean that pills are bad or wrong. It doesn't mean that masks are bad or wrong. It just means there's something that they can do, there's something that they cannot do. And yes, there are side effects. Join that with trying to hide these side effects, trying to not tend to the people. Okay? That creates for a tremendous experience of betrayal that we are, with the nodes and the rowing Taurus, we must address. We must change. We must tend to it. And this is not a blame, shame, absolutely not. I believe that doctors are doing their job. I believe that people that come to pharmacology believe that they come to change humanity, that they come to do good for humanity. I believe that most people who come to study pharmacology, they come to study because, maybe somebody in their family was helped, their life was saved. Maybe somebody died in their family and they believe that maybe the power of a drug, a medicine, a vaccine can save life. It's not bad. They're not big, they're not evil people necessarily. I believe that everybody who studies politics, who tries to run for municipality, or I believe that nearly everybody has something that they want to change, that they believe at least is in favor of humanity. However Machiavellian the strategy is. Okay? And yet, look what happened. So we definitely have something to tend to in terms of our structures, in terms of our ideation of what the medicine can and cannot do. We don't want to throw the baby with the cradle. Pluto is about to go into the sign of Aquarius. And Saturn is about to go into the sign of technology. And now, after we have experienced what technology, we had a preview of what technology can do or what technology cannot do. Saturn is about to go into Gemini. Technology, social, not social structure, but definitely social issues, uh, society, transportation, mass media, children, and so on and so forth. So, any Mercury lunation, of course, is powerful. This one is very potent. It's in a pivotal month, the month that both Pluto and Saturn change sign, they both ingress into the next sign. So we have a couple of days or before Pluto also ingresses into Aquarius. Pivotal moment and a good time to let go of what no longer serves the framings, the words, the actions, the weapons, um, the relations, the way we consider something, the type of cleanliness we seek, because as the moon is decreasing, we also cleanse, we vanish with this, with that, okay? The type of cleanliness we seek, um, all of this is being rejuvenated. So we're letting go of something. We've culminated a process, we're letting go of something. Mercury is trining Pallas, so children can be supported. We can have people advocating for children. We can have feministic lawyers. Doesn't have to be a woman. There are men who are tremendously feministic lawyers, great lawyers. Um, we can have traders. We can have the type of trade that is actually in favor of the people. Trade that takes into account caregive the wealth, the type of, it has been a while since we had the type of the wealthy that actually generates wealth in society. And it has been a while since we had such people. We've it feels like we've been having a sort of comedians. We've been having, people who put from one pocket to the other, from one charity, like very corrupt. But again, this is, the course of Pluto and Saturn sign. It exposes a lot of corruption. So even people that were not, necessarily that corrupt, or that were pragmatic to their times, um, whatever they try to do now in favor of humanity is not so much down to earth. And Pallas Mercury can yield or can assist in a certain type of trade, contracts, new types of trades, agreements, currency, right? That is actually, um, but this currency is also emotional, it's also non-dual. So it's a certain type of transaction that advocates for and accounts for our emotions, and accounts for caregiving, and accounts for children and mothers. Okay, maybe it can be fathers, maybe these, but caregivers, but specifically children and mothers. If it will be extended to fathers, then it might, because we also have here this trine with the sun. Okay? We can have better advocation for people who deal with addiction. Okay, sun in Pisces. Um, People who made trade decisions that were foggy in the clouds. Okay, we can have advocation for these people. Think about all the people who bought apartments before raising the interest, the basic interest. In Israel, we have the interest is raised in the eighth time to combat inflation. Think about people who pay mortgage. Okay, they didn't make bad financial decisions. They made decisions that they either were in deep stress, they were idealized, they were thinking maybe it's my only chance to buy an apartment, I'll just go for it. And so advocating for them, for the decisions that they made, and maybe helping, allowing them to let go of some of the trade decisions that they made without losing housing, without losing rights. But there are all these things that are potentials that we can activate here. What more do I see here? Pallas and Sun. Well, I said, people who might deal with addictions, creative rights, absolutely creative rights. Think about the struggle of the artists when they face AI. Here's the transition to AI. How to work with AI in a way that serves humanity. Also the human facets of air, but this is another aspect, it's not this aspect in particular. Um, Jupiter Vesta. Jupiter Vesta is, well, we can have people that are either very fanatic, fundamentalist, or just very dedicated, highly spiritual people. The type of belief here is in unity. So we have favoring actually of monotheism, Kantian morality. Here, Jupiter Aries. I don't know what is this sap something, so I can't delineate here. If you know, then let me know in the comments. And Jupiter with Chiron. So wounds around our belief system, our life philosophy, that also has to do with children and the bringers of children, seeds. Aries can be barren land, so perhaps belief in making the barren land fertile. Yeah, there's a potential, there's an actual potential to make a barren land fertile here. But then there is this square to Pallas, fertility, issues around fertility, wounding around fertility, or the role of a caregiver. Or, you know, if you think about Pallas, is also the woman who doesn't necessarily want to be associated as the mother. It's like I want to be a woman in the right of myself, want to caretake for me, not just for my children, or not necessarily to be a mother, some that. And then there's actually a desire to actually heal certain fertility wounds, maybe agricultural wounds as well, you know, seeds, making a barren land fertile in here. And there's a worldview that supports that or that begins to tend to that. And then there's a tension to hold. And perhaps the solution is also in the tension to hold. Is, you know, if you know, just as I'm a, you know, career person, or I like to do this, I like to do that, just as much as I am whoever I am, I'm also a fertile person. I'm also a person who can make a barren land fertile. I also desire to have children, just don't want it to overtake my identity. So there can be, with Jupiter, children can take over the identity of the person, whatever Jupiter represents. So your opinion, you can say, I am a, you know, a Jew, Christian, Muslim. I am a father. I am a mother. Okay, because Jupiter, I am a spouse. Okay, that is, um, I'm a guru. I'm a martial artist teacher. And so there's a wound around that, like needing to address your social. You need to have an I am that is either separate from all these things that you've identified with to a certain degree, not to lose them completely, or to have an I am that actually incorporates previous identities. Okay, I am also a father, I am also a spouse, I am also a child of someone, I am also making barren lands fertile, I am also a caregiver, and so on. I'm also, you know, Muslim or Hindu or whatnot. And so, depending on your relation, and this all has to support the radical acceptance of how you feel. Okay, your religion, your worldview has to support, because there is some tension here, the radical acceptance of how you feel. Okay. There's some discord here between your emotions and the life philosophy in your Aries house here and the wounds that you're tending to. Okay. You need to hold this tension. Um, I will not go over the 12 signs because it would make it too long for me to have energy to deliver